Hey everyone, it's Joni Hollifield from Leading for Longevity. Welcome to our leadership talk. Give it just a few moments or so just to see if anyone else joins us. But hey, I'm excited. Haven't talked to you guys in a couple of days, so I'm excited. Today's topic is going to be going from peer to manager. So I know that all of my folks who are leaders now who've had to make that transition, I know that you can relate to some of the hardships that you have to go through when you're talking about being someone's peer and then now you're being promoted to being their leader. Sometimes lines are blurred and we have to clear those things up. So that's what we're going to discuss. So if this is a topic that interests you or someone that you know, please feel free to go ahead and hit share on this video. Share it with someone. You never know, the jewels, tips, and advice that we share may help someone in their progression to becoming a leader. All right, so in our discussion, we're going to go over quickly three main points. The first one is why is this the hardest transition to make? Out of all the leadership transitions that you can make and that you will make throughout your career, why is this one in particular the hardest? The second point we're going to go over is how you can keep relationships intact during this transition. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that most people have when you talk about going from peer to leader, is that, how do you preserve those relationships that you have? You want to be able to keep those in place. And then the last is potential hardships that you may go through when you're moving from peer to manager, and how you can avoid some of those. That's the goal of this, to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that most of us had to learn the hard way during our transition. Oh, had to catch the phone real quick. All right, so getting right to it with our point number one. So transitioning from peer to manager. So again, we've already noted that this by far is the hardest transition to make in the world of leadership, and simply because it truly does challenge you in a lot of different ways. This is the part of your career where you're separating yourself from the team while still remaining part of the team. One thing I always tell my clients is to think of it like this. You're still playing on the same team, but now you actually have a different role. As an individual contributor, you only had to ensure that your personal goals were met and that you were keeping yourself accountable to the job. Now that your role has changed, you have to help everyone else achieve their goals and assist them with remaining accountable to the job. So regardless of how you spin it, it's still a hard transition, mainly because your former peers, they have to now readjust in terms of seeing you now as their leader. This is an adjustment. They have to go through that change cycle. Now, if before your promotion you were already positioning yourself as a leader, as a mentor, as a coach, as a resource, as that go-to person for your team, then your transition is going to be much easier because it'll make sense for those former peers. This won't be something that's totally new to them. They'll already have consciously or unconsciously started to view you as a leader, respect you as a leader, and allow you to guide them as their leader. So although leadership has very little to do with a title, and real leaders know that it has absolutely nothing to do with the title, people who are not in leadership or people who don't understand what it means to be a true leader, they don't really get it. And a lot of times those are your peers. They just don't get it. So whoever holds the title in their mind has the influence. And because that is true for them, your transition could meet some bumps in the road because your former peers now have to really go through that cycle of accepting the change to accept you as their new leader. Makes sense? So people who strictly ride that title wave, they'll jump on board. They'll be on board simply because you have the title, simply because you've got the promotion. It doesn't matter where you are leading them people. As long as you have the title, then they're following. Now, keep that in perspective. This does not mean that you have their commitment to perform. This just means that they'll follow your directions. To the degree to which they'll follow those directions, that's going to determine how strong their buy-in is to you as a leader and to your vision. So, second thing, keeping those relationships intact during this transition. This is another one where the standard you've already set, that's how people are going to perceive you. If the relationships you've built at work have been relationships that are traditionally unproductive, they typically, don't really get a lot of work done. You spend a lot of time, maybe gossiping or doing unwork related things, then that's the direction that the new working relationship is going to gear to if you do nothing. If the previous relationship was productive, same deal. The thing is, regardless of where you stand on that, one of the things that you can do to help you find that balance is to communicate. As a leader, you'll be challenged to communicate a lot. You'll communicate a lot. This is how you'll work through others, by communicating. With each person on the team, set the expectation. It's a great practice to set the expectation both in a group setting as well as an individual setting. This is where you'll have to own any not so good examples that you may have set previously, or words that may not necessarily be a good representation of where you are now in your career. You're going to have to own that, because believe me, people have not forgotten and people remember. So you're going to have to own that and, explain to them now that it's different, and that you are not that same person anymore. You've actually grown, you've matured. These people, they've watched you grow. They've seen the changes. They've witnessed firsthand your journey into your new leadership role. The expectations are now changing, and you have to let them know exactly what to expect and how things are changing. I always recommend that you start by giving them the basics in terms of what type of leader you plan to be, how they can expect you to communicate with them, and what you can offer them both as a team as well as an individual. People are always more likely to be open to the idea of following a new leader if they clearly understand how they can best work with this leader and how this new relationship can potentially help them grow or be better. So helping them understand your leadership style and what you're going to expect from them, that's critical. That's critical in that transitional part. And then the last point, potential hardships of the peer to manager transition and how you can avoid them. So the first hardship, and this is probably one of the most common, and that's managing a personal relationship when you've been promoted from peer to leader. If you're the type of employee who doesn't have any type of personal relationships with the people that you work with, then this really won't apply as much to you, because that ground has already been set. But if you're like most people, if you often make friends at work, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, then this could potentially be a challenge if that friend isn't 100% clear on how things have to change as a result of your promotion. What you can do in this instance goes right back to communication. If that person is really your friend outside of work, I suggest having a real conversation with your friend outside of work, explaining to them how on the work front things are going to change and things have to change. Depending on the working environment that you guys are in, depending on that culture, maybe nothing needs to change. But in most cases, something will have to change. It's going to be different for each work environment, for each culture, but for the most part, just be sure to cover the basics. Anything that could potentially be seen as favoritism, anything that is unproductive for the organization but provides personal value to you or that friend, anything that could be perceived as inappropriate for the workplace. Now, not that any of these things should be happening in the first place, but understand that the expectations are now magnified, and you don't want to risk the trust of your entire team. Friends who are really your friends, they'll understand you and they'll support you. Friends who intentionally give you a hard time and purposely try to hinder your growth, you should reevaluate those friendships, because I guarantee you that person is not your friend. Another hardship is not being able to perform as well as you previously performed when you were not the leader. It's really easy once you've settled into your job and you know what's expected and you got that grind, you got that groove, that you're able to rise to the top. But what a lot of leaders find is that it's different once you transition over. If your peers were used to you being that top performer or used to you leading that pack in specific areas of performance, and you're no longer doing that, that could potentially diminish your credibility simply because they aren't making the correlation that being a leader and being a top performer requires two different skill sets. The same skill sets that made you a top performer in your department will not make you a top leader in your department. And sometimes even us as leaders, we can be confused by that. Now, I know that my new leaders who are just stepping into the leadership role, I know that you guys can relate because you're probably feeling it and living it right now. It's just not the same, and it's not easy. What you can do, though, to preserve your credibility amongst the team, what you can do is you can help the team reach their level of greatness within the organization. Be that open book. Be that person that shares your knowledge, shares your resources, shares your tips, and everything that made you great in that position. Share that to them, especially if you weren't already. Allow them a chance to now become the top performer, to now be that person that's leading the pack in regards to metrics. Coach them up. Provide them with that mentorship that's going to allow them to grow. Make helping them reach their goals your priority goal. It will absolutely help you build that credibility, and some of the team members who may have been resistant at first to accept you as that leader, guarantee they'll warm up and come around once they truly understand and once they can feel that you're genuine in your attempt to help make them better. All right, so I hope that this has been helpful. Please engage with this post if it relates to you, if it helps you, or if you know someone that it may help. I invite you to share and comment. I love hearing your feedback. I love hearing your thoughts. It's always a good thing when we're able to share different perspectives, different experiences. So I'm especially curious to hear from you if this is something that you're living right now. What could we do to help you through that transition, or what feedback do you have? What helpful insight that may help someone else? So for more tips and videos like this, you guys can feel free to check me out on my website, www.jonihollifield.com. And thank you. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'll see you on the next one.